Well, good morning. We're going to do something different today. My hope is to walk as far as Parksville, mostly following the railroad track route, but we'll see. We might have to divert a little bit. Also be checking in along the way, see how timing is, because we have a bus to catch up in Parksville to bring us back. So if it's getting too late, we might have to turn around or break it short. So anyways, thanks for joining me, and we're going to start this journey on. We're at the Pearson Bridge at the moment in Nanaimo waterfront next to the Millstream River, and we'll be checking in along the way and showing you some sights. So thanks for being with me on this journey, and we'll be touching base a little bit. So we start this trip on the Trans-Canada Trail. Here's our first hit of the E&N Railroad, which is a path we're mostly going to be following along this journey to Parksville, if not directly but indirectly. It's only a short stretch here. Most of the way through Nanaimo has got a parallel walking path which we'd be taking instead of the railroad directly. But after that, we might be jumping on and off this set of tracks to get us along the way. When we're on this journey, especially through Nanaimo, we're going to be passing a lot of malls slash shopping areas along the old highway. We've got a bypass that goes around Nanaimo now, but most of the interior traffic will still follow the old highway. And I mean, historically, Nanaimo is the hub of the island, at least the mid-island region, and people had to come here from shopping from all around. But over the years, that shopping has been pretty dispersed rather, closer to where people live. So you're not having to drive down from Comox or drive up from Duncan to do your shopping. They have their own spaces to go locally, and so many of these shopping malls in Nanaimo have seen much better days. So there's a lot of empty retail space, but more remnants of what was. There was a time, I believe, Nanaimo was the mall capital of the world, or at least of Canada, in terms of the number of retail space per capita. Those days are long gone. So anyways, we're just continuing on the E&N trail, which is parallel to the railroad track, and we'll keep going. Cheers. I'm gonna break off the trail for a little bit and go and pick up, I guess, some coffee. We're about just over an hour in, just past kilometer 6. It's still pretty quiet out because of being a Sunday, but this is where most of the access to any sort of food or drinks or whatever is going to be until I leave Nanaimo, and then it sort of gets quiet for a good 2/3 of this trek. So I have to remember to pack up what I can. Anyways, one of those things is coffee, and that's what I'm going to get now. Well, we're crossing the highway on this overhead walkway and reconnecting to the E&N path. We're crossing the old highway, actually. Pretty noisy, right in the intersection. But have to worry about the light, and you get a bit of a view from up here, I guess. Well, we're going to break from the trail for a bit and connect to a walkway along Metro Drive. This is sort of the continuation of the E&N to some degree. The alternative is to the Parkway Trail, which is just behind me, but goes up a bit, and we're going to be backtracking then if we go that route. So Metro Drive is, I think, the best option. We're going to join the E&N again, just crossing a trestle bridge here. Here we are walking underneath the Nanaimo bypass towards the north end of the city, getting towards Woodgrove, where the old highway and the bypass sort of connect again to Highway 19. It was actually fairly recently I found a post about a trestle bridge just around, well, within the north end of the island and along this E&N track. Crosses a small little lake, and yeah, it was an unexpected find. I'm glad I did. It's a short trestle. It just crosses a bit of a creek that runs out of the lake. But yeah, having one so close was a nice. Wow, we're leaving the trestle bridge behind, continuing to walk on the rail line. We're getting into Lanceville soon, and we'll talk more when we get there. We're about 12.25 kilometers from where we started, about 2.5 hours of walking. So far so good. We're probably about, I'd say 40% of the way, but we'll see. I'm not sure exactly the route in Nanaimo. Google Maps will not probably be the way that we end up going, so we'll check in along the way. Here's another nice addition to the E&N Trail. Again, found during some wandering, basically connecting from Ald's Road in the north end of Nanaimo, and follows the railroad tracks all the way to, I believe, Lanceville Road. I'm not sure what the actual name is, but it's about, I think, 1.5 kilometers or so, maybe 2. Nice paved route, a lot of opportunity for walking, and I've ridden my bike out here, and then at the end you can loop back into Lanceville village and return back to the city of Nanaimo if you choose to. So we're just gonna walk along this for a bit, and we'll touch in a bit later. Well, we've left the E&N paved trail in Lanceville and now walking along the railroad track itself. I think that's the last piece of paved sort of parallel trail that you can take along this route, maybe until you get to Parksville. So we'll see how it is walking along. These railroad ties makes it a little more challenging, but yeah, and I'm not even sure if you can get through all the stretches, so that'll be another check-in. So yeah, we're at about, I don't know, 14.5 kilometers in, and getting close to almost 3 hours, just before 3 hours. So it's a bit of a journey so far. Cheers. As you can tell, the trail is not as well used as we had before. The rail ties are a bit slippery. They're more so in the shade. A lot more overgrowth, although not so much where we are right now. I've already had my first incident where I was videotaping, so not paying attention to the ground, and some, I guess there's been a dog around here, so I'm hoping we'll find a puddle of some sort to clean off my shoe a bit. Anyways, I've switched the lens out. I'm using the wide angle lens now, just to see if there's any difference in the videography. So hopefully you enjoy the change. We're next to the highway, so it's a bit noisy, but this track is actually not so bad, so I'm looking forward to keeping it up. Well, definitely noisy here. We're basically walking next to the highway. Spotted the railroad. I wouldn't see if I was driving on that highway so many times, but yeah, we're next to it, and a bit of traffic and a bit of noise. We're surrounded by trees, and it's all in its fall colors now, but yeah, civilization is not so far away. Wow, we're about the halfway point, just over 16 or so kilometers. I haven't checked recently, but I think that's about where we're at. And yeah, I mean, it's still noisy. We're right next to the highway, and I think we're going to be next to the highway for quite a while, actually, until we get into Nanaimo on the other side of Nanaimo Bay, and then we'll veer off along Northwest Road there, and it should be a lot quieter. One might ask, you know, why do this sort of a walk? I guess the quick answer is, you know, why not? It's an area I haven't been before, and I find the railroads, you know, they had to punch through based on the amount of grade and so on that they can sustain. They sometimes had to punch through things and areas that for a road they might just go around or somehow mitigate. So you get to see spots that you may not otherwise see, or presented in a way you might not otherwise see presented. So that part's a bit cool. Also, you know, I've been looking for a while to get to these longer walks and see, you know, train myself effectively to see how those long walks would do. For example, I have actually had a long-standing goal to walk from Victoria to at least Nanaimo and maybe up to Comox, Courteney, and yeah, along this rail line mostly. Although there's the Trans-Canada Trail that you can follow from Victoria to Nanaimo at least. And whether that was a backpacking thing or more like a hut-to-hut type of thing, I haven't decided, but I was hoping to do that this year. It didn't happen, so I decided to do it piecemeal instead, at least for now. So from here, Nanaimo to Parksville was one aspect of that, and it's a, you know, good opportunity to check out the rail bed. Once you get up to Parksville, it's not so bad. There is now bus service, so long as I get there at a reasonable time, which is I've been watching my watch for that. There is a bus that will take me back to first to Woodgrove, and then continuing on back home to downtown. So that's the plan, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, so far the time seems reasonable. We're about 3 hours and 15 in. As I said, I think we're maybe 16 and a half or so kilometers, so I think we have time, and we'll just keep that going. I've kind of committed already effectively, because I've walked, I'd have to reverse steps, and we're about more than halfway now. Anyways, that's some thoughts for now. I'm gonna close this off for now, and then we'll touch base a little bit later. We're at some point we get to the other side of the highway. I'm not sure where that happens, And then we'll be running or walking along the News Bay. And then to the other side, we'll veer sharp right into sort of, said Northwest Road and the like, which should be a lot more quieter and rural before connecting to Parksville itself. That's the plan. Well, that stops this progression, at least through this stretch. I gotta find a way to get to the highway relatively easily. Yeah, the rail line's been pulled up. It blocks this way. I might have to backtrack a little bit to get back onto the road. So we'll see how it goes. Well, this isn't so fun, but the intersection is not too far up, and be able to get to the other side at least. I think the railroad, you know, is soon after that, and hopefully that part isn't blocked. So we'll see. Not the safest part of the trail right now, that's for sure. Well, finally, there's a walkway that crosses highway. I have to walk beside it for way too long. I'm hoping it won't be much longer. It's a pretty busy stretch. But now we're on the other side, and hopefully can reconnect with the rail line again pretty soon. Well, we're at a marine park, random, didn't realize it was even here. It's supposed to be a waterfall around here too, I saw, but less concerned about that than trying to get back onto that rail line. I'm hoping that I can walk along the beach for a bit and then reconnect with it, because we're already 19 kilometers in and 3 hours and 45. That was bad planning on my part. I didn't realize that the rail was shut down effectively through the First Nation territory. I thought they were still allowing access, but I was not surprised that it's not allowing access. But I wasn't aware, and so I ended up doing a dangerous stint along the highway for longer than I would have liked. But you know, my bad. That was easily predictable. So just note for future reference that the throughway isn't available, and you're going to need to find an alternative route or be comfortable walking on the road for a bit. Anyways, I'm just looking around to see the best way forward here. I'll touch base in a bit. Well, looks like we're gonna get lucky here. The tide's out, and we might be able to walk along the beach until there's get into the bay, and then there's a cut up to the railroad, and you continue along with that. Someone's got a property here, and I don't think they're allowed to do this development, sort of concrete right up on the shoreline like this, but you know, what do I know? In any event, private property, you can't walk up there, but the shoreline is all public, and so no problem accessing it down here. So I'm not sure exactly where the cut might be so we can get back onto the rail line, but with the tide out so far, it's not a bad walk along the beach here. Well, it looks like this trail is taken before. Someone's used this bit to get up to the rail line, which is just up here. Nicely put some stairs in, and yeah, it's been clearly a path that people have taken before. So here we are back on the rail line after a bit of an absence. And we're gonna continue on. Hopefully it'll be easier. Be running next to the highway again here soon. And yeah, good to be back. This stretch that we're getting into is often used by people doing clamming down on the beach side. Yeah, I suspect all these trails that are connecting up towards the highway and down to the beach that we just took are probably in place for them. And a lot of controversy over this practice. There isn't a real pull-off area next to the highway, and so people are pulling, do pull off into relatively narrow areas, and then of course have to get back on the highway. So it can cause a bit of a dangerous situation. So there is some moves to try and stop the practice entirely, so you're not able to pull over here. I don't know if there's alternatives in terms of better parking and the like, but I don't know even about the harvesting of seafood in this area, period, in terms of regulations and the like. So yeah, for what it's worth, it's I think it's going to be an ongoing discussion, but it's getting pretty busy. I think numbers of dozens to 50 plus vehicles lined up on the side of the road, and so surprising people haven't been hurt. Well, just past 23 kilometers, so 4.5 hours in. It's hard to say how much further it will be. At least 10, but maybe 14 or even 15. Google Maps says it was 32 kilometers from where I started to where I'm ending, but it's not taking the rail route. It's not going on Northwest Bay Road or any of that. So probably add a few kilometers for that piece at least. But our time is not too bad. This stretch is just on the side of Nanaimo Bay. It's a nice straight stretch of railroad. The trees around are deciduous, so they've changing color, being in the fall, and it's quiet. There is a road, the highway's next to me, but I think I'm reasonably sheltered from the noise from it, and there isn't anybody down here. This whole walk has been pretty quiet and solo, particularly once you left the Nanaimo city limits. So it's been good, and yeah, we'll just keep trudging along. We're going to be turning right soon, connecting into Nanaimo Bay proper, and continue to walk. I think it's a bit of a curve to get to elevation rather, and then it's just straight through to Parksville. See you along the way. Well, we turned into the News Bay, moved away from Northwest Bay Road for a bit, and then has turned back, and now we're right next to it. And I can see where it's going to cross the railroad up ahead. I'm not sure where the rail actually goes at this point, so I could look at Google Map, but I'll live with a surprise. I made a brief stop at the Petro-Canada, right at the highway crossing there, just to grab a energy bar of some sort. I thought I brought one, but apparently not. So I grabbed one there, and it was crazy expensive, but what can you do? Anyways, we're just gonna keep walking along this stretch and see where it leads. Well, still walking into News. It's hard to say how much further we need to go, but we'll just keep following this, I guess. It's only 2 in the afternoon, so we have quite a bit of time. We've been on this trail and for, I don't know, maybe almost 6 hours now. Anyways, maybe a little bit about the E&N. It's had this off and on relationship with, punching it through. I know it wasn't too long ago, maybe a couple decades perhaps, that they used to run rail from Victoria up to Comox on these tracks. It's a great right of way. Relatively good grade, so as a trail, it's actually pretty good, except for the ties and everything along it sometimes. But the rails are still here, and the ties are still here. There hasn't been much movement towards doing anything with it with respect to rail travel. It's in such it's fallen apart so much that it would cost a good chunk, I gather, to bring it up to the standard now, even if it is just more like a via rail type of thing that runs up and down it. It's also not sure how many passengers would actually be on it, although the island is changing rapidly. There's a lot more people moving to places like Duncan and working in Nanaimo, or living in Nanaimo and working in Duncan, or Comox, or wherever. So you never know, but I suspect it'd be one of those heavily subsidized services if they ever got it to go. For me, it'd be nice, it'd be great if it had actually worded dedicated to an actual trail, a sort of a multi-use bike / walking trail. I think that might be fairly well used, and you can always, I guess, switch it back if that's where you want to go, but I think there's a real resistance to that right now. Once you take the rails out, it's hard to put them back. Plus, it's shared ownership. There's lots of jurisdictions. We have provincial, we have agreements with the railroad company itself from way back when. First Nations, obviously, that a lot of this rail runs through their territory, and they're probably, I would guess, not too keen given the circumstances that it was taken. So I don't know. For now, it's a unofficial trail. Not everybody will take it. Some stretches more popular than others. But like I said, it is a nice stretch, and especially in some areas where you're walking over trestle bridges or into regions of cities' backyards, effectively, or large, rural areas that you may not otherwise see, excepting for this access. So, I don't know. This rail's been pretty good. I'm feeling it in my arms and shoulders as I usually do if I've been walking for a while. It just, I don't know, the weight of my arms or something really messes them up and they get achy. But the pack's good. It's been very quiet throughout. There's hardly been anybody on these stretches, but yet the trail itself is mostly clear. The only things that I've had bothering me or hanging out with me are the spiders. There's so many spider webs across this rail line, and I'm walking into them constantly. Usually not seeing them until the last minute. But outside of that, it's all pretty good. I haven't seen much in the way of wildlife outside of a couple of deer, but maybe that's what can be expected. Wow, we just passed the 32nd kilometer. Clearly we're not in Parksville yet, but we are pretty close actually. Just coming to the exit ramp for Parksville from Highway 19. We're not too far from that, and then we'll go past that and run parallel with Highway 19 for a bit. So it's in sight. May only be another hour or so, but it's hard to guess, to be honest. It's strange, they have a train gate here with lights. I don't remember the last time a train would have gone through here, but I guess you see all sorts of things. Well, we passed the 33 kilometer, and where I showed you the train gate just down the track here, that's also the entry point to Parksville. We're still a bit far from the city center, but we are at the city boundary, so it's only a few more kilometers from this point. Walking over a larger trestle bridge next to Highway 19. Let's see. It's not a bad size. Forget what creek this is. I think it's English River down below us. And if you continue to walk down there, there's a trail that ends up going to Top Bridge Park, and then from Top Bridge you can go to English River Provincial Park. Okay, we're just gonna keep going, not too far now. Well, that tree's leaning quite a bit. I don't know how much longer that's gonna be not blocking this rail. There's a bunch of trees sort of falling over the close to falling over the rail track. There's these gates on this stretch, almost like access road or something. The path obviously is very road-like, and maybe fire or utilities. It's making for the hiking through this stretch a lot easier. The rail line itself is pretty bushed up, so it'd be a bit of a pain to walk on that, but no, this is very fast. So we're into the home stretch. We're gonna turn off here in a very short while. Okay. Well, we're on paved road now, heading to the Parksville Community Center. We just left the rail line, and it should be a short stretch to there, and then it's just waiting for the bus to take me to Woodgrove, and then from Woodgrove back to home. So the bus trip itself is probably an hour and a half, but it's still a lot shorter than it took to walk out here. I think we'll give you some final stats towards when we get closer to the community center. Well, welcome to Parksville. We're just getting closer to the community center here, which we're hopefully going to catch a bus. I'm told it only runs every hour or so, so if we miss it, we got to wait a long time. Anyways, final stats, more or less. Anyways, we're at 47,000 steps and about 39 kilometers. Total time taken, we're probably looking at around 8 hours or so. So it's a pretty lengthy walk, but a pretty good one. Weather has been fantastic. It's been relatively quiet most of the way, and the trail was fairly good. So that's going to be closing off this trip. And please, thanks for joining me. And we'll touch base again soon, I hope. Please like, subscribe, and all those other things so you can join me in future adventures. Cheers. Well, just waiting for the bus here. It's the intercity bus route from Parksville to Woodgrove in Nanaimo. Haven't taken it before, nor have I used their UMO sort of app for the BC Transit system. Should be able to scan the code there and use it to pay. If not, I do have money, but just curious how that card's going to work. So anyways, a few new things on this trip, and the bus should arrive here in maybe 10 minutes. Okay.